I've always felt my mom doesn't love me despite her claims. You're so ungrateful, I sacrificed everything, she shouts when I voice my hurt, leaving me drained and confused. Is her love really conditional? My mental health is suffering, but is it me? This is more of a rant, but opinions and advice would be greatly appreciated. I genuinely feel that I might be the one who is unreasonable, so any insight would be helpful. Just a warning, this may be somewhat lengthy and slightly disorganized, so please bear with me for the first half. As the title indicates, I do not believe my mother truly loves me, nor has she ever, despite what she claims. I am an only child raised without a father, but my mother had multiple boyfriends throughout her life, so I witnessed a lot of that. They were kind individuals, so I did not mind. Our family as a whole is small. Me, my mother, my grandmother, her son, my mother's brother, and whichever man my mother is dating, her relationships usually last for a long period, approximately 3 years on average. Her current relationship has lasted 7 years, but I believe it will not last much longer. She is choosing to hold on because she feels old and does not like the thought of being alone again. Without going into too much detail, our family is dispersed. My grandmother is in our home country, my mother is on the other side of it with her boyfriend, and I have been in a different country for most of my life. I have lived alone since the age of 16, attending boarding school, with my mother for 1 year during the COVID-19 pandemic, and then on my own again for university. I have covered my own expenses since the age of 19 through part-time jobs, but mainly through student loans, with my mother assisting if I was running low. She was a strict parent while I was growing up. I would get punished for talking too much to her friends or acquaintances, for not performing well academically, or for generally making her look bad in any manner. She had many friends and was popular with men, but she was also known for her temper and fiery personality. People would avoid arguing with her because she would scream and become easily annoyed. I was a quiet and obedient child overall, but when I turned 16, she somewhat relaxed her expectations, allowing me more freedom. We always clashed personality-wise. I still do not know why, but while growing up, I observed my mother, and perhaps because there were things I disliked about her, I ended up doing the opposite. To this day, I would say we are very different. The only characteristic we share is our temper, but for me, it only surfaces around her. This brings me to the reason I am writing. She always liked to think of us as friends, but for reasons unknown to me, I never felt I could share anything with her. She is the type of person who needs to feel loved and validated. I do not believe she is very emotionally mature, though I might be mistaken, but I do not think she realizes that the love she claims to have for everyone feels very conditional. She has a strong temper, yet she has always been very helpful to people financially or when they are in need. From the outside, it appears that she is a lovely, helpful person and a great friend. I genuinely think she is. However, I have always felt that contrary to her beliefs, her actions do not stem from a sincere place. It seems as if she does all of those things to either feel good about herself or to gain appreciation from others. Her love for me has always felt suffocating, and when she does not receive the affection she desires, she becomes angry and accuses me of being unloving. Throughout my upbringing, my most prominent memories involve her criticizing my personality and stating that she would never be my friend if she were not my mother. My relationship with her has been progressively worsening as I have encountered and interacted with more diverse personalities. I have come to realize that throughout my entire life, any time we have had an argument, which occurred very frequently, my feelings would always be disregarded. No argument was ever resolved because she simply refused to acknowledge that I could be upset. Somehow, I always ended up being the one at fault. She would not allow me to explain myself, and whenever I tried, her blood pressure would rise, causing me to stop speaking. I once cried desperately trying to make her understand, but she began checking her pulse and yelled at me to be quiet, claiming I would kill her if I continued to speak. I now realize that perhaps this has led to some form of resentment over the years. She is correct. I do become moody and defensive around her very easily. I do not exhibit this behavior with others, but naturally she does not see that aspect of me, so she assumes I am simply a miserable person. Attempting to explain my feelings has never seemed effective. Thus, every time we have an argument, I never get the chance to express what I feel needs to be said, and everything becomes my fault, even if the argument stemmed from something she did that hurt me. I have started being more straightforward with her, pleading for her to listen or at the very least acknowledge that she has hurt me, yet I am consistently met with her insistence that she did nothing wrong. I do not think I have ever heard an apology from her directed at me. She redirects the conversation to make me feel ungrateful and disrespectful. She talks to her friends and my grandmother about me. They all view me as a terrible daughter. Obviously, they only hear her perspective, and it feels incredibly isolating to be painted as a villain while being unable to explain my side, with my feelings continuously dismissed. I often feel very drained after conversing with her. There have been many instances when I have been on the verge of breaking down and vowed to cut contact, yet I always forgive her easily. I truly care for her and do not want her to be unhappy, and her tactic of ignoring problems until they disappear seems to work, which is why this situation has persisted for so long. The reason I believe she does not love me is that whenever she shows affection, it seems contingent upon whether she thinks she can receive it back from me. The moment I do not reciprocate for any reason, she becomes angry, and all of that perceived care seems to vanish. Surely, if one cares, it should be unconditional. She frequently states that she sacrificed so much for me, despite my supposed ingratitude. I am genuinely thankful for the life I have, and I know it is due to her sacrifices. However, considering that I am her only child, and much of the financial support has stemmed from some of her relationships, I sometimes feel as though I have not taken that much from her. Yet any form of help I request from her makes me feel like I am taking everything from her, and that not many other parents would do what she does. We have been arguing far more lately due to one unresolved conflict that left me feeling deeply hurt. I stopped trying to tread lightly and told her outright that she needed to apologize, to which she refused. She knows I live alone and do not have many friends left after university. She has people to talk to and vent to, which she is constantly doing, yet I have to contend with this mental turmoil on my own. When I feel unwell or sad, I cannot turn to the one person who has spent my entire life convincing me that I could rely on her unconditionally, without fearing another agonizing argument. As of now, whenever we converse, she is the one acting as if she has been hurt. She has not shown any interest in how I am doing or if I am okay. My mental health has generally been in poor condition, and I have been unwell for some time, yet she is unaware because she has not demonstrated any concern for my well-being recently. I suppose this is where I realize that she does not genuinely care about my feelings or well-being. She appears more focused on how I have hurt her and how she does not deserve this type of treatment. Not once have my feelings been acknowledged, yet several times she manages to insert a remark about how I have failed to do something, branding me a bad person. Some criticisms are valid, such as when she confronted me about not calling my grandmother despite her declining health. I genuinely feel guilty about it and have reached out in the past few days, but it seems inappropriate to bring it up at this moment. It feels as though she is presenting a very valid point, yet the timing feels more like an attack. I cannot argue against her as she is correct. I have not been a good granddaughter. However, something feels off because surely this was not the concern we were originally arguing about, but how can I voice that without coming across as if I do not care about the wrong I have done? This entire situation leaves me feeling perplexed, and I keep questioning whether I am the one at fault. I cannot reduce contact as that is not the type of relationship we have. It is all or nothing. However, I have no idea what that would look like. I fear it could genuinely drive her to madness. So what is the solution? I cannot endure this much longer as it is progressively damaging my mental health. It seems that every time I achieve a good mindset and resolve one issue, two others arise. Should I follow my intuition, which has been guiding me for a while, or should I engage in self-reflection and alter my approach? In summary, interactions with my mother feel transactional and her love and care seem insincere. She makes me feel like I am a bad person, and I am beginning to believe that. Story 2. I thought I found love at 23, but nearly 4 years in, I'm suffocating. You've ruined my life, he'd say during my worst panic attacks. He changed after therapy, but his toxic friends linger, demanding acceptance. Can our love survive this shadow of our past? I, 23 years old, female, love my boyfriend, 24 years old male, but our past still lingers. I am uncertain if I can endure this indefinitely. My boyfriend, 24 years old male, and I, 23 years old female, have been together for nearly 4 years now. From the very beginning, things were not quite right. When we met, I was in a really dark place, and somehow, instead of improving, my situation only worsened. I had previously been in a 4-year relationship, so I had expectations of what love should entail, but I did not know how to articulate them appropriately. I also did not fully understand how to establish boundaries. He, on the other hand, had never participated in a serious relationship before. He had no real expectations or comprehension of what a healthy partnership should resemble. Just a few months into our relationship, he lied to me. It pertained to something significant, and it shattered the little trust we had managed to build. That was when everything began to spiral out of control. I fell into a deep depression. I started experiencing severe panic attacks so intense that they resembled seizures more than anything. Meanwhile, our arguments became unbearable. I made every effort to be a good partner. I was working exhausting night shifts, and while I was at work, he was out with his friends who drank excessively, gambled, and lived recklessly. They stopped liking me after we began dating, even though I had known them previously. After he had already lied to me once, I could not shake the anxiety. For 2 years, we were trapped in a cycle of breaking up and reconciling, always at his decision. Each time I was left feeling more shattered than before. At my lowest point, I became suicidal. My panic attacks intensified and the arguments never ceased. When we moved in together, I witnessed a side of him I had never seen prior. He never physically harmed me, but his anger was terrifying at times. He would punch doors, shatter furniture, and throw my belongings across the room. I grew up with a physically abusive father, so being around that kind of rage-watching, a man lose control like that in general made me shut down completely at times. It was not his fault that my past made it even more challenging for me to cope, but it was exhausting. And then there were his friends. They resented me and were unhappy that he was dedicating more time to me. I tried everything I could to be accepted. I cooked their favorite meals, invited them over frequently, and encouraged him to maintain his friendships and see them more often. None of it made a difference. They continued to speak behind my back, and he did not attempt to protect me. One of them, a girl studying psychology, tried to persuade me that I was the problem, claiming I had an anxious attachment style and that I was suffocating him. However, I was never controlling. In fact, it was quite the opposite. I never stopped him from seeing them, yet no matter what I did, they continued to dislike me. Eventually, my boyfriend began to resent me too. He told me I had ruined his life, disrupted his friendships, and essentially ruined him. He said these things while I was in the midst of my worst panic attacks, struggling to breathe and at my most vulnerable. The way he looked at me during those moments, like I was something pathetic, something he was ashamed of, hurt more than anything else. It is important to mention that I have never been perfect in this relationship. My panic attacks may have started as a reaction to something he did, but they were not solely his fault. I had already lived a rough life before him, and someone with a more stable upbringing would have reacted differently. I did experience jealousy at times, nothing extreme, and I invariably kept it to myself, but it still created tension. I am aware that I was not easy to be with. Even while struggling, I did my best to never hold him responsible for my mental health. One day, I decided to leave and block him. I moved to another country to ensure that I would not return. I thought that would mark the end of our relationship, but I continued to have nightmares about it every night. After a few months, he found a way to reach me. He informed me that he had started therapy, that he was working on himself, and that he had changed. So I decided to give him another chance. And he truly did change. He transformed into the person I had always hoped he could become. The anger subsided. He learned to communicate effectively. He has been treating me with kindness and patience. He no longer blames me for his troubles. My panic attacks disappeared almost immediately. For a year, I felt genuinely happy. However, lately, something seems a bit off. His friends remain prominent in his life. His brother, who is immature and difficult in his own way, is still present. My boyfriend has distanced himself from his friends since he realized through therapy that they are not a positive influence. Nonetheless, they are still around and are not making things easy for me to this day. He is telling me that if I want to be with him, I must accept them, his brother and at least his best friend. He told me that I must let go of the past. He has moved on, so why can't I? We have also had a few discussions about priorities recently, conversations I hoped would bring us closer together. Instead, they have drained me, and after the last one, something within me shifted. I do not really know what to do anymore. I have invested so much into this relationship. I understand that compromise is a significant aspect of being with someone, and I have never had an issue with that. However, recently, it feels as if my boundaries have been pushed too far. In the past few days, I have been spiraling. I cannot explain why, but I feel disconnected, as though I am dissociating. My patience feels entirely depleted, my anxiety is soaring, and I cannot shake the feeling that we are going to break up soon. It does not even feel real, but the thought keeps becoming more pronounced. I have attempted to speak to my boyfriend about it, but I do not believe he takes me seriously since there is not a major issue at hand. However, perhaps that is the issue. I am usually quite self-aware, but at this moment I feel lost, like I have reached my limit after nearly 4 years. I feel exhausted, too drained even to explain myself anymore. Numb. And the worst part, I feel guilty for feeling this way. Perhaps I just need more time and will find a way to reconcile with the things he desires for me. It is possible that I am overthinking everything. However, at this point, I feel stuck between the love I have for him and the past that continues to cast a shadow over our relationship, as well as a future with individuals I do not want in my life. Has anyone experienced something similar? Do you recognize this feeling, and what do you think it signifies? Thank you in advance. I would greatly appreciate your honesty, and I apologize for the lengthy post. Summary: my boyfriend, 24 years old male, and I, 23 years old female, had a toxic relationship for 2 years with constant fights, his anger issues, and friends who disliked me. I developed severe panic attacks and ultimately left, blocking him and moving away. Months later, he reached out after starting therapy, and he truly changed. We have been happy for a year, but now I am struggling. His friends are still present, and he insists that I must accept them. I also feel like I am prioritizing our future while he is more focused on himself. I love him, but I am afraid we might not last. Am I overthinking?